So, good morning and good evening. We'll begin with Sri Aurobindo and Mother's Study Circle, wherein we are reading the compilation Looking from Within, which was compiled by Dr. S Dalal. So, I'll just share the screen. So, as we begin this session, invoking Mother and Sri Aurobindo's grace and presence as we begin, and praying for suppleness, for openness, for receptivity, so that anything that I read which I can benefit from, which my being is ready for, may I be able to recognize it, pick it, and implement it in my everyday. So we are on the chapter, I think, action and work. And this is where we ended last time. So we have to start with this passage, self-dedication. So I'll just read this passage. Self-dedication does not depend on the particular work you do, but on the spirit in which all work, of whatever kind it may be, is done. Any work done well and carefully as a sacrifice to the divine, without desire or egoism, with equality of mind and calm tranquility, in good or bad fortune, for the sake of the divine and not for the sake of any personal gain, reward, or result, with the consciousness that it is the divine power to which all work belongs, is a means of self-dedication through karma. So just taking it again, self-dedication does not depend on the particular work you do, but on the spirit in which all work of whatever kind it may be is done. So this is really interesting. And last time too, we had read on the same lines about, how we have images of what is a divine work, what is a good work, and most of us we do that. And so here we are being told that it does not depend on any particular work, because we are so dependent on images, we are so dependent on perceptions, that it feels like very strongly, it feels that one work is good while the other is not. One work is spiritual while the other is not. And that is rooted very deep within. If you're working for an NGO, that's a good cause. But if you are, say, working in a regular office, it's not doing anything. It's not worth much. But I could be working in the NGO with absolutely, operating from the wrong center, or rather developing an ego further on that, see, my life is dedicated to this. Or I could be working, like Kabir Das. Kabirji was a weaver, and and he was Kabir. So I think something that, again, to knock certain things out of ourselves, to shed more load that we are carrying or images, is really something that we can, benefit from, to know this, if we can believe this and let go of the so much of the images that we are carrying. So self-dedication does not depend on the particular work you do, but on the spirit in which all work, of whatever kind it may be, is done. Any work done well and carefully as a sacrifice to the divine, without desire or egoism, with equality of mind and calm tranquility in good or bad fortune, for the sake of the divine and not for the sake of any personal gain, reward, or result, with the consciousness that it is the divine power to which all work belongs, is a means of self dedication through karma. It's very tough. Like if you're just, doing a regular job, normal thing, and not to have this any inclination for any personal gain, reward, or result, it just seems to be going quite contradictory to how we take things. And yet, this shows that it can be done. So, this quote is by Sri Aurobindo. That day, I was, listening to something from Osho, and he was talking about Lao Tzu, and he was saying that he was comparing Krishna, the Gita, with Lao Tzu, and he said that like in Krishna with Arjun, he had to talk about karma. He had to talk about nishkam karma. You do the action, but don't think it's you. Like keep offering it because Arjun was just ready for that kind of receptivity. But Ladzu, he says that you are not the doer, which Krishna also says to Arjun, and neither is the divine the doer. So that was quite interesting. He said, by becoming a doer, I do no good, that it doesn't do any good to me. And similarly, we just keep putting things on divine and then blaming or appreciating, and that doesn't do any good to the divine as well. So his thing is that the things are just happening, they're just happening. But because we like, reasoning, and it's like, okay, first it's like, I am doing, I am doing, I am doing. Then it's like, he's doing, he's doing, he's doing. And then probably it's like, not he doing, not I doing. It's just happening and taking me towards something. So that's even more difficult to understand, but it was an interesting way he had put it. With the consciousness that it is a divine power to which all work belongs. Because technically, especially say if I have a backache, if I hurt myself, I remember when I, had ankle sprains, the same things that you could be cribbing about, you become so grateful that, oh wow, I can do it, I can do it. That's a bliss in it, so much grace in itself. So probably something of that. Yeah, anything by anyone before we move on to the next small passage? One thing it shows that a lot of times we keep waiting, for that perfect thing that I would want to do. But here it's just indicating that you can start doing things perfectly with more sincerity and operating from the right center, and anything can become that perfect thing so that I don't have to wait anymore. So if there's anything, please unmute. Otherwise, we can go to the next passage. Yeah, so anybody is, if they want to read.
Of course, the idea of bigness And smallness is quite foreign to the spiritual truth. Spiritually, there is nothing big or small. Such ideas are like those of the literary people who think writing a poem is a high work and making shoes or cooking the dinner is a small and low one. But all is equal in the eyes of the spirit, and it is only the spirit within with which it is done that matters. It is the same with a particular kind of work. There is nothing big or small.
Yes, thank you. Again, very simple, very self-explanatory, doesn't need much expanding on. Just again, kind of we can question ourselves and look at our images again. I'm using the same word again and again because there are so many perceptions in us, in me, where we do these classifications. And while Jagan was reading, it appears that yes, it appears writing a poem is a high work, and yes, cooking a dinner is a small work. Like that's how deep it goes. But what's important is what's beautiful is because we are here to learn, we are here to go grow, we are here to shed things which are not true. So no matter what we think is right or wrong, here Sri Aurobindo is telling us that all is equal in the eyes of the spirit, and it is only the spirit within with which it is done that matters. It is the same with a particular kind of work. There is nothing big or small. Even if one can have not realized it here, if it's just here, but even to have it here, I think takes us a long way. I remember reading, there's this beautiful book, The Perfect Ones. I think that was the name. Yeah, and in that they had spoken that, I think Meera had a guru, I don't know what his name was, and he was working with leather, like he was making shoes. So it was like that was the universe's way of showing that there is no work which is small or big. And even the people who are working with leather, which is, really looked down upon, especially in the Hindu culture because they're working with animal skins and all, even there, God can descend. So, yeah. I'll share if the name comes to me. The name of the guru is not coming to me, the mystic. So I'll keep moving ahead because I don't think it needs much elaboration. If there's anything, kindly unmute and stop me. Yeah. So if anybody is willing, we can take the next passage.
One must take it, work done in the world in brackets, as a training and do it in spirit of karma yoga. What matters there is not the nature of the work in itself, but the spirit in which it is done. It must be in the spirit of the Gita, without desire, without detachment, with detachment, without repulsion, but doing it as perfectly as possible, not for the sake of the family or promotion or to please the superiors, but simply because it is the thing that has been given in the hands to do. It is a field of inner training, nothing else. One has to learn in it these things: equality, desirelessness, dedication. It is not the work as a thing for its own sake, but one's doing of it and one's way of doing it that one has to dedicate to the divine. Done in that spirit, it does not matter what the work is. Sri Aurobindo.
Again, on the same lines, and one can wonder that why is Sri Aurobindo repeating himself, or why is Dr. A.S. Dalal compiling the same kind of passages, but we need this repetition, right? If we hear it once, if we hear it twice, we feel that, oh, maybe it was directed to, somebody specific, or it doesn't go in. But when we are rereading it, somehow it goes further in. I mean, it has the potential of going further in. So here Sri Aurobindo is saying that one must take it, work done in the world, as a training and do it in the spirit of Karma Yoga. What matters there is not the nature of the work in itself, but the spirit in which it is done. In regular schools, there's so much, say, rectification, right? They just learn, and try to put it down on the test, and we wonder what it is for, but it trains the brain. With Mirambika, they make little children learn so many shlokas. Again, training the brain to grasp the information, to memorize. So it's like the training of the mind. Here again, he's saying that one must take it as a training and do it in the spirit of Karma Yoga. What matters there is not the nature of the work in itself, but the spirit in which it is done. So it must be in the spirit of the Gita, without desire, with detachment, without repulsion, but doing it as perfectly as possible, not for the sake of the family or promotion or to please the superiors, but simply because it is the thing that has been given in the hand to do. So just, being more open to it, more conscious of it, that ideally it should be done without desire, with detachment, without repulsion. The word that he is using, so many things come to us, and not for the sake of the family. A lot of times, right? Like people just lash out that we are doing it for the family, or, to make this or that person get that education, or to get that house. So not for the sake of family or promotion or to please the superiors. What else is there these days in the corporate world if one is not pleasing the superiors? So how far we have come, it's interesting. How far in a sense, far from where we should be. But simply because it is the thing that has been given in the hand to do, it is a field of inner training, nothing else. There's this
So now
thing,
let's
right?
say, yeah, there is somebody who's doing a job and he's doing it mainly because he's the head of the family and he needs to support the family. So the same job, it mean like this paragraph, would it mean that you do the same job but with a different attitude? Because because under say that person knows that I'm doing this job primarily to support my family. And let's say if he didn't have a family, he would have been alone. He might not have been doing that job.
Mm.
But then, if we read this, so is it just that the attitude which should change, or he should change the job and do something which he can actually offer to the divine?
Yeah, so that's what all these passages are saying, right? Like quite contrary to our mindsets is what I was saying. That it's being said that it does not matter what you are doing. Everything what is about how you are doing it, operating from which center. And I've had this conversation with my father about, working and how one thing leads to the other. So we feel that there's so much that is needed, by the family even to do and all, and I have to make this much. So, he had shared with me that how when you start, because you want to make us at least, the basic thing so that the family is taken care of. But then he shared that how, you start doing the work, but then how it captures you and makes you a puppet. And then, maybe this amount that you wanted to make becomes that and that and that and that. And before you know, you're fully immersed and all your centers are here and there. And you forgo, you forget basic ethics and stuff, and it's all about higher margins, not all about, but those are, they become very big components, like the life starts puppeting you kind of a thing, like not his words, but that's the essence I got. Yeah. Do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, so when life it starts puppeting you,
Mm.
then I mean one should have the wisdom to step back and then see that so much of work is not necessary and I should curtail it, or one should go on doing that work but have that attitude in mind that it's for the divine.
Yeah, I think what you said, the latter part appears to be that coming from here. है ना, it's not about, it's about जितना काम कर सको, and we know so many people who do so much, right? So it's mostly about not limiting what you're doing, but whatever you are doing, little or small, little or big, little or more, if it's coming from this right center, that perfecting what I'm doing and doing it with love, with the divine, for the divine.
Yeah.
I remember once, once or twice I had shared this and I find that very beautiful. So I'll just share it again. That once I had, gone to meet a relative, and his mother was working in the kitchen and she loved to cook. So she told me that, whenever I am cooking, I always say, she used to, believe in Krishna, that I'm cooking for Krishna. And she said that a day I forget to say it, the quality, that the taste is different. And when I say it most of the time, I feel there's extra flavor, there's extra freshness to the food. So I really liked it. And I was like, yeah, that's such a nice attitude. And I met her maybe after 5 years again, and again she was in the kitchen. And I told her that, you had told me this, and I really liked it. Like I found it very motivating, and the approach was beautiful. She said, but I'm not using that approach anymore. And she said, now whenever I'm in the kitchen, I say Krishna is cooking. So there is no me there. So then she says, "Ki, I feel it's even more perfect and I feel more love while I'm in the kitchen." So how, we all evolve through what we are doing, whatever it is. And and if you're doing it with love, and how, Sri Aurobindo says, without desire, without detachment, with detachment, without repulsion, it goes a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You know, my mother used to be a teacher many years ago, and she used to teach Hindi, English, maths, and Kannada for students from first standard to seventh standard. And she was the best teacher. I, I was very little, but I could still remember how all the kids loved to, listen to her. And before we moved to a different city, how they gave her this favor and all that. And fast forward, I know I saw she became, she became a housewife after that. She never went to teaching. I don't know why. So, I would ask her that, you are so intelligent and you're so talented. Then why do you do this? Like, you know, I tell her that, you put so much effort, and sometimes I never recognize it. I just say, "Yeah, I don't want to eat." I would just be upset that why is this cooked today? And still she's smiling, and she's, so happy about it. And I never understood, but one time I asked her, I think, yeah. So she told me that, I don't know, she said something like, even she doesn't understand. She's just extremely happy just to be able to cook, and she finds a lot of peace in it. And the way she expresses it, matlab, I can see that it doesn't come from her mind. That happiness, when I say I'm happy, then for me it comes from my mind. Okay, this is what I assume is happiness. But for her, the way she expresses it doesn't come from the mind, comes from a center that I haven't yet touched. So, to sum it up, I just want to say that when I'm reading this, to not to expect anything, and not to do anything, thinking that someone will praise me and all these things, I can tell myself repeatedly. But there is another part, or there is, like, we have two different inventories, one the mind inventory and then that magical inventory. In the same way, there is another being in us which it just feels. Now I cannot express, like, I cannot even explain it, how it feels, but I have seen that in her, and that's a reference for me, that how it really feels. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So it is a field of inner training, nothing else. One has to learn in it these things: equality, desirelessness, dedication. It is not the work as a thing for its own sake, but one's doing of it. It is not the work as a thing for its own sake, but one's doing of it, and one's way of doing it that one has to dedicate to the divine. Done in that spirit, it does not matter what the work is. Yeah. Just a very small sharing. I am not very good in the kitchen. Like, I don't really have that flair or that special interest or the want to cook in general. But I've seen that anytime I take anything for granted, like, say my rotis used to be, say, India ka flat. So now if they're slightly rounder, and if I say, कि now I know, whenever this thought comes, कि अच्छा अब मुझे आ गया. So even if I've done something like, okay, I don't know, making idli, for example, if I made it 20 times perfectly, and this time I'll say, oh, now I know how to make it, the next time, the next batch would be like horrible. So then I have to go back to it, कि नहीं मुझे नहीं आया, kind ना, like, as in any time, even the slightest thing comes, कि okay, I've got it. And then I have to say, no, no, I don't know, you are only doing, and then it gets better. It's, I don't know, I just find it very naughty and very funny, or maybe it's just a creation of my own thing I attracted, but I find it pretty funny. So just wanted to share that. Let's go to the next one. Jagan, would you like to read it?
It depends on a certain extension and intensifying of the consciousness by which all activity becomes interesting not for itself, but because of the consciousness put into it. And through the intensity of the energy, there is a pleasure in the exercise of the energy and in the perfect doing of the work, whatever the work may be. I'll just read that one more time. It depends on a certain extension and intensifying of the consciousness by which all activity becomes interesting, not for itself, but because of the consciousness put into it, and through the intensity of the energy, there is a pleasure in the exercise of the energy and in the perfect doing of the work, whatever the work may be. Aurobindo.
Just like everything else, I always, because my eyes are always looking outside, I always put things or value outside of me. Everything outside we know affects us, right? Like sunny day, especially if you're living in the cold, it's like, wow, God is great. And, drowsy, dull day, our moods are down. And so, I mean, sense, everything affects me. I might like to say that, how what mother says that see how little circumstances matter. But for me, circumstances matter a great deal. So here Sri Aurobindo is saying that it depends on a certain extension and intensifying of the consciousness by which all activity becomes interesting, not for itself, but because of the consciousness put into it, and through the intensity of the energy, there is a pleasure in the exercise of the energy and in the perfect doing of the work, whatever the work may be. So, the spirit, the center, the consciousness with which I am living my life, the way I'm doing things, I make it interesting. It's not that the activity is interesting, the task is interesting, but the way I do it, that makes it interesting. So, in itself, it has nothing. But because of the consciousness put into it and through the intensity of the energy, there is a pleasure in the exercise of the energy and in the perfect doing of the work, whatever the work may be. So, this thing, is being repeated in each and every passage that we are reading, that whatever the work may be, whatever the work may be, whatever the work may be, it's my consciousness, it's my center of operation, which makes it dull, big, small, heavy, light, repulsion, attraction. So, yeah, good learning. So, this section was action and work. Let me quickly check. Action and work, yeah, sorry. Stays in the beginning of all pages. And now we are, that section is finished. And now we are on section 3, the work that purifies. So the first one is just a single line. Sri Aurobindo says, the spiritual effectivity of work depends on the inner attitude. So how effectively one is doing it, how it's helping me on others, or just the effectiveness depends on the inner attitude. But again, as a practice, as a habit, as a pattern, as a collective, we do give a lot of importance, almost all importance, to the exterior things, the bells and whistles, and never to the spirit or the heart. So I think this again is coming to us. repeatedly. This again is by Sri Aurobindo. So, yeah. So, Ritu, would you like to read this next one?
Action and work?
Yeah.
No,
Sorry,
no.
we'll start from the only verb. Yeah.
Yeah. The only work that spirituality purifies is that which is done without personal motives, without desire for fame or public recognition or worldly greatness, without insistence on one's own mental motives or vital lusts and demands or physical preferences, without vanity or crude self assertion or claim for position or prestige. All work done in an egoistic spirit, however good for people in the world of the ignorance, is of no avail to the seeker of the yoga.
Thank you.
So sometimes when, like, say, in India, we start some work, we first pray to Ganesha. So that's, I think, similar to offering it to the divine, but we just do it as a process, not actually inwardly offering to the divine. But the ritual or the initial purpose of that practice must be this only.
Yeah, very likely. Yeah, you're right. Good catch. The other day we were watching Ramayana, Ramanand Sagar's Ramayana, and in that गुरु विशिष्ट जो उनके मेन गुरु थे of the family, the four children, they are being उनकी कोई यज्ञ हो रहा है और अब उसके बाद the four kids will go to the guru's ashram, and the guru is formally accepting them as their pupil, as his pupils, as his students. So it was very beautiful. I just saw it very shortly, in which he said that, that you are not my students first. So I think first he said that you're first the students, say, of Agni Devta. Then you're students of this Devta, like maybe first, then Indra, I think, who's the greatest. Then third, somebody else, fourth, somebody else. And fifth, I have, the thing on you that then my kind of place is fifth. And the next thing he said was that, you know, मेरे गुण लेना, मतलब आई होप कि हमारे में कॉर्डियलिटी बनी रहे, और मेरे गुण लेना, मेरे अवगुण मत लेना. So as a guru, to say this, to acknowledge, to say that I have bad things too, I have bad qualities too, and a guru like Guru Vishish, like, it was very humbling and beautiful to hear that. So the only work that spiritually purifies is that which is done without personal motive. This is what we have been reading. This seems to be the theme of this section. Without desire for fame or public recognition or worldly greatness, without insistence on one's own mental motives or vital lusts and demands or physical preferences, without vanity or crude self assertion or claim for position or prestige. All work done in an egoistic spirit, however good for people in the world of the ignorance, is of no avail to the seeker of the yoga. So, I think why this is especially being framed this way, because a lot of us can question, right? That how do I do anything without personal motives? How do I not go for fame? Is it not good to become great in the world? Is it not good to follow personal motives or desires or demands, right? So that's why I think he's so beautifully clarifying that yes, if you're living in the world and you're living as an ego, which we all are, but if you're a seeker, then this is not your approach. Otherwise, of course, this is how we all do it, and this is how one will do it. And it's good maybe for the people who are doing it because they are getting what they are seeking. But if I am seeking something or doing something for personal motives, let me at least realize that this is what I am doing it for. Then I should not seek some peace and calmness or, and some lightness in it. If I'm doing something for the fame, recognition, greatness, with my personal motives, lust, desires, then if I'm aware that this is why I'm doing it, at least I can be honest not to expect something else from it. So I think it really helps me personally when I'm able to identify, because at least then you are not being dishonest. So even if you're doing something wrong or for the wrong reasons, you're at least, you can see, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is the center from which I'm operating, and this is where it will take me. Yeah, and if I'm a seeker, I have to be mindful, watchful of these things. It takes time, long time, but with little efforts, lots of aspiration and prayers and grace, magic happens. So this again is from Sri Aurobindo. So I think we'll take one last passage. It's a slightly bigger one. So anybody who wants to read, they can please read, otherwise I'll read.
Right.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Men usually work and carry on their affairs, ordinary motives of the vital being, need, desire of wealth or success, or position or power or fame, or the push to activity and the pleasure of manifesting their capacities, and they succeed or fail according to their capability, power of work, and the good or bad fortune which is the result of their nature and their karma. When one takes up the yoga and wishes to consecrate one's life to the divine, these ordinary motives of the vital being have no longer their full and free play. They have to be replaced by another, a mainly psychic and spiritual motive, which will enable the sadhak to work with the same force as before, no longer for himself but for the divine. If the ordinary vital motives or vital force can no longer act freely and yet are not replaced by something else, then the push or force put into the work may decline, or the power to command success may no longer be there. For the sincere sadhak, the difficulty can only be temporary, but he has to see the defect in his consciousness or his attitude and to remove it. Then the divine power itself will act through him and use his capacity and vital force for its ends. Sri Aurobindo.
Thank you. So again, with relation to the previous passages, Sri Aurobindo is saying that men usually work and carry on their affairs from ordinary motives, which are, of the vital being, need, desire of wealth or success or position or power or fame or the push to activity and the pleasure of manifesting their capacities and they succeed or fail according to their capacity, power of work, and the good or bad fortune which is the result of their nature and their karma. So that's the regular way in which we do things, ordinary way in which we do things. That's how we are taught, that's how the collective is doing. So that's it. And now, when one takes up the yoga, this is when things change. So, when one takes up the yoga and wishes to consecrate one's life to the divine, these ordinary motives of the vital being have no longer their full and free play. Because now they are restricted, now they are being seen, now it's not that they can just puppet us without us noticing. So they have to be replaced by another, a mainly psychic and spiritual motive, which will enable the sadhak to work with the same force as before, but no longer for him. Some aim, some dedication is needed. First, it's always us. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Little, big, small, high, low. But now, with the same force that sadhak is expected to work with or higher, but no, he's not working for himself, he's working for the divine. So if the ordinary vital motives or vital force can no longer act freely and yet are not replaced by something else. So if I say, okay, it's not for me, but I don't, kind of consecrate to the divine, so Sri Aurobindo says that then the push or force put into the work may decline, or the power to command success may no longer be there. So for the sincere sadhak, the difficulty can be temporary, but he has to see the defect in his consciousness or his attitude and remove it. Then the divine power itself will act through him and use his capacity and vital force for its end. So, it's being said again and again. I know even Sri Ravi Shankar used to say it, and Acharya Prashant used to say it, that there's one thing that the divine doesn't do. He doesn't force you to follow him. He's all there. If you get attracted, you get pulled. The circumstances can take you there, but it's your free will to turn towards him. So if I have stopped, say, devoting things to me, but unless I say it's for you now, that's what it appears to me, and I could of course be wrong, but that's what it appears, that you have to hand over. Unless you hand over, of you know, automatically it would not be that you stop operating from your personal center and the divine center will take over. So it has to be said, it has to be felt, it has to be offered, and then it's taken up. Yeah. Anything on this? Any reflection, comment? Again, these are very simple, self-explanatory passages, surprisingly, most of them, which is great. So we can even go further, we have time. So, Ritu, would you like to read the next one?
To be free from all egoistic motive, careful of truth in speech and action, void of self will and self assertion, watchful in all things, is the condition for being a flawless servant. To be free from all egoistic motive, careful of truth in speech and action, void of self will and self assertion, watchful in all things, is the condition for being a flawless servant.
Yeah, I don't think anything can be said to this. One can just note, one can just aspire to live, to be that flawless servant. Mm. We can even go for. Do you have anything to say on this too?
Yeah, each word is so heavy.
Yeah. Although it's
Yeah,
such a small line, right? For Sri Aurobindo's writing. But yeah.
egoistic motive, careful of truth in speech and action, void of self will and self assertion, watchful in all things. Yeah.
Because I can't do everything, or because
Mm.
sometimes things seem too big, right? And because I don't know where the journey will take me and what all paths I'll have to cover, what mountains, what rivers, what glaciers, but I can be careful about the next step, right? So I think that's what I just feel, because sometimes this can be overwhelming or even demotivating. But whatever I can see, my sticky points, my ego issues, some things just stand out to me, right? In my everyday, I might justify them, but I know mine. I know, we all know a lot of what we are doing, where we are doing it from. And of course, a lot of it is hidden and we don't know. But for what I can see, for what I can do, for what I can give up or control, if I just do that, the next step will come from that. Yeah. So since you're unmuted, if you just want to take the last passage, we can end with this.
Get the spirit of the yoga of works as it is indicated in the Gita. Forget yourself and your miseries in the aspiration to a larger consciousness. Feel the greater force working in the world and make yourself an instrument for a work to be done, however small it may be. But whatever the way may be, you must accept it wholly and put your whole will into it. With a divided and wavering will, you cannot hope for success in anything, neither in life nor in yoga.
Yeah, nice way of ending it. You know, a lot is a lot of stress, a lot of importance, a lot of that is it kind of a thing is given on oneness, right? That how we are all one. Even in synthesis, I remember reading there was something like, there is self and then there is non-self. No, the other self, I think, but we take it as non-self. He said something like this. We don't say that that also is self, but maybe other self of me. But I say non-self, like that's not me. So because that oneness appears to be that so far, right? That everything is me and every consciousness is me and the same consciousness is in everything. So then I think the middle step is about self abnegation, self forgetting, because that is easier. Not easy, I'm saying, but easier than that oneness if we have not felt it here. To forget yourself and your miseries in the aspiration to a larger consciousness. When I keep remembering myself and my miseries and my desires and my past and my traumas and my limitations, I keep getting sucked in it and life passes me by. Don't realize it before it's over. So forget yourself and your miseries and the aspiration to a larger consciousness. Feel the greater force working in the world and make yourself an instrument for a work to be done, however small it may be. But whatever the way may be, you must accept it wholly and put your whole will into it, because with the divided and wavering will, you cannot hope for success in anything, neither in life nor in yoga. But the lives that we live, everything is divided outside and inside of me. There's chaos outside, there's chaos inside, there's confusion outside, there's confusion inside. And that is why Mother stresses upon, more awareness and more alertness, and how one must try everything one can to get in touch with their psyche, because a lot of confusion is clarified and it just goes away, and suddenly there's clarity. You know what you have to do. So, whatever it is that you want to do, that you have to do, you must accept it wholly and put your whole will into it. This looks pretty simple, but it's tough, especially because there's a lot that is not preferred by me, that is rejected by me, that is disliked by me. To accept it wholly and put your whole life into it, it's tough. But when we know that with a divided and wavering will, I cannot hope for any success, neither in life nor in yoga, so then I can, reflect on it more and aspire and pray for it more. And if I see myself, kind of divided, I can again offer. So again, today, these things, these passages from Sri Aurobindo were about action and work. And this section was, again, action and work is the main thing. And this is fatigue and rest. No, sorry. What was it? The work that purifies. We're talking about purification here. Yeah. So if there's anything, any last comment, question, sharing about this or anything else we are seeing or not seeing, we can take it up. Otherwise, we'll end the session now, and hoping that we can reflect on it and may it dawn on us more and more. Just forgetting yourself and your miseries, it's so tough. But, the larger consciousness, the promise of it is so beautiful. Right? Yeah, that's a good motivation. So I think we'll end the session here, and next time we'll start with fatigue and rest. So just taking one last minute to just thank the Divine and His grace for my health, my well-being, my receptivity, my wanting to be more. May I be guided toward greater lights, and may I be able to purify my work and action. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you all.
You.